And we're live! Hello, my friends. It's good to be back. Last week I was not here for the RockSim Live. Michelle filled in. But today I am here and I am going to take any questions you have about RockSim, because this is RockSim Live. I am Tim Van Milligan. Oh boy, what a day it is today. Nice here in Colorado, nice and cool. Yeah, if you're watching live, there's a chat going on right now. Go ahead and put your questions about RockSim, RockSim Pro, or the launch visualizer into the chat, and I'll answer those here today. This is about answering your questions. There's really no agenda. So I'll go about an hour long, as long as you have questions, and if you don't, well, then we'll go shorter. We've never gone shorter in the history of this show. Okay. Let me show you my computer screen here, and let me go to the Apogee website. Well, see, what you just saw on the website was this was not last Monday, a week ago Monday. This was my daughter Allison's last day of work here. This was her in 2004 when she was helping me model rockets. This actually is the cover image on the Dynastar Rising Star payload rocket. And that was her in 2004. That was a couple weeks ago. Last week, the reason I missed was because Allison got married, and this was her wedding last Saturday, which was 7 days ago. So she is now married off. This was me walking her down the aisle, so that's kind of like, that's what was going. That's why I wasn't here, because I was in, she got married in Virginia, and I'm in Colorado, so I had to travel out there for her wedding. I'm going to miss her as a worker. She was a good worker. She'll be around occasionally. She's helped a lot of videos, our advanced construction videos. This is the Apogee website. On our website, apogeerockets.com, you will find the RockSim training live, which is what we're doing right now. This is the archives. So last week was June 24th, and this is what Michelle did. She did upscaling your rocket design, exporting and printing your fin design, troubleshooting the differences in weight between real life and RockSim. What is your favorite motor? Oh, cool. Revisiting the show hide button for the mass objects. Yeah, we learned something new. There's this feature in RockSim where you can show and hide mass objects. The programmer built that in there for some reason, and it's kind of cool. So that's the archives. So you just go to that home page and click on my photo here, and that'll take you to the archives. Today is episode 76, and today is July 1, 2022. We got some chats going on here. We have Carlos K. from Marietta, Georgia, checking in. Jim Hayland, trying to get the same results that you show on the Apogee website for altitude in my RockSim, but got roughly 30% lower values. Any suggestions for me? Jim, tell me which rocket you're looking at. And we can try to answer that one. Art Applewhite, he says, howdy from Texas. Hello, Art, how you doing? Art, are you going to be in, a couple weeks from now, is going to be Narrum in Missouri. That's about as close to Texas for you as for me from Colorado to Missouri. Are you going to be there? If you are, we'll have to say hello. Carlos says, does anybody else hear this? I get echoes. My microphone seems to be working. Rick DeFossis says, greetings from New Hampshire. And Jim says the lock 4. Okay. So we'll take Jim's questions first, but before I do that, if you're on the Apogee website and you've never used RockSim before, if you want to try it out, there's a free trial. You just come down here to How-To and Guides, come down here to the software menu, click on that, and you can see there's a free trial that you can click on there. There's the system requirements here. Check those system requirements because some of the older systems are no longer working, and it's because Microsoft and Apple kind of broke things. And we've been trying to, when they break them for the new operating systems, we have to fix it because people are always upgrading. But people don't really regress in operating systems. So those old ones, when we fix it for the new ones, that kind of breaks the old ones. So check those system requirements if you're using an old operating system. RockSim does run on Windows 11, Windows 10. On the Macintosh, it runs under, Catalina, Monterey, Big Sur, and a few others. Yeah, there is some news on the release. This past week, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, we released a Macintosh version because previously we released version 10.4 for Windows, but we didn't release 10.4 for Macintosh. We were still on 10.3, but now on Monday we've released 10.4 for Mac. And if you want to know what it includes, you can go here to the version history and then come down here to 10.4, and it will scroll down and you can see all the changes that we added. This release, about 11 months since the last release. No, actually 13 months. So on the Mac, it will be now 10.4 F5. Because we had to do, the F number is our internal number. So every time the programmers make a new version, they increase the F number. And that's just for me and them, so that we're on the same page with my programmer. But then when we release it to you, we release, we change these numbers right here. So this is the major version, then the minor version, and then this last number would be a bug fix version. So if we only made bug fixes, this number goes up. If we add new features, that number goes up. And so in version 10.4, we added all of those new features. So that's why the version number went up. But if there's a bug fix, only this last one will go up. We're not planning on a bug fix anytime soon because we've been fixing things left and right. The only release that we haven't released yet is RockSim Pro version 10.4 for the Macintosh. For Windows, it's out, but for the Macintosh, that one is still not. We're still on 10.3 on RockSim Pro, and the issue on the Macintosh is the flight visualizer, the launch visualizer, the 3D simulator. On Big Sur and Monterey, it's not working. It's working on Catalina, but not Monterey, because again, Apple broke things. So we have to get that straightened out. But that's the last minor release that that I know of. The cool thing is this past week, I started talking with the programmers about RockSim version 11. What features I want in version 11. So if there's a cool feature that you would like, now is the time to submit them. Because the programmers will start on version 11. Because I want to be done with version 10. Version 10 has been out now. When did we come out with version 10.0? 10.0 was released in April of 2020. So it's been 2 years and 3 months since version 10.0 came out, and now we're on 10.4. But major versions have major features. in the major feature in version 10 was that you could do recommended motors, which you couldn't do in version 9. So I got some plans for some big features. But the programmers haven't started it yet, so don't look for it anytime soon. It's going to take a while, because when I add a big feature, I want it big. Okay, so that was the news. Okay, so the news was on the Macintosh, 10.4 has been released. So now it's caught up to Windows. Okay, so like I said, if you want to get the free trial, go to software, download the free trial. And on the Macintosh, if you are using 10.3 and you want version 10.4, just download the trial, because the trial is 10.4. You have the choice of selecting Windows or Mac. Say right here, select your operating system, Windows, Mac. So that's where you would just choose the Mac, and then you'll get the latest 10.4. Art Applewhite asks, when's Linux? Art, you kill me. The reason we don't do Linux is we just can't support it internally. Because when customers have questions, say, hey, I can't get it running on my Linux machine. Well, we don't have any Linux computers here, and none of our staff is trained under Linux. So we just can't support it. So we can't release a Linux version just because we just can't support it. Because if we were going to sell it, and if you had Linux and you paid money for a RockSim and we couldn't support it, then you'd get pretty mad. So we're trying our best. The future is the cloud, and then it doesn't matter what operating system you're running. That's the whole push for the Launch Visualizer, because it's the start of taking everything into the cloud so that we can get away from all these stupid Microsoft and Apple problems that they cause us. Okay, so let's go to Jim Halen's questions. He has a lock 4. Okay, so let's go to the Apogee website. So here on the website, I'm going to type in lock IV for 4th. It's a Roman numeral 4. Here's the lock 4. And you can download the RockSim file right here. Just click on that and it takes you to the bottom of the page. Here's the lock 4. I'm going to download it to my computer so that I'm getting the same one that he is. So let me close that. Okay, so I have RockSim running here. Let me open my downloads. Open downloads. Okay, so here's my RockSim, or lock 4. I'm just going to drag it onto RockSim. Save my old design. I'm going to say no. Okay, so here is the lock 4. Let's see. It has no simulations there. Has no recommended motors. Okay, so let's go back to the Apogee website. Okay, so what I am assuming that Jim is talking about is these numbers here. Like the G75J, the J stands for blackjack, so that's a black max. Produces black smoke. It's a 29 millimeter and it's in the 180 case. The Aerotech casing numbers are kind of hard to decipher. Don't worry about it. It just stands for the maximum total impulse that the casing can hold. It's kind of like the size of the gas tank. So this is 180 Newton seconds. This one right here is 240 Newton seconds. So it's just a bigger case. And this is getting 1,658 feet on a J75. So let's load in a J75. So if you're in RockSim, come up here to prepare for launch. Okay, it says in this design, at least one body tube in each stage needs to be designated as a motor mount. So this design, obviously, I did not create. It was probably sent to us by Lock. And so at this point it says you can select the motor mount tubes now if you wish. And I'll say yes. So here it's showing me all the tubes in the rocket, and they're all labeled body tube, but I don't know which one is the motor mount. It could be any of them. They're not. The person that created this design didn't designate one by changing the name to motor mount tube. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to the rocket design components. That's where we're going to do it. And you can see I got two tubes showing, and there's probably one buried in here. So if you click on the tube, it'll show you where it is in the picture. So that's the upper one. So let's change the name. Let's call this one payload body tube. And here's the checkbox that says this is a motor mount. Now this is not a motor mount, so I'm not going to check it. Click OK. This one down here is the fin can tubes. So let's change the name of that one. Body tube. Okay. I need to find the rocket motor. So I can also come down here and just click on it. I know that this is the rocket motor tube. So if I click on it, it'll highlight it in the parts tree up here. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to say engine mount tube. And then I'm going to check it. This is a motor mount, and it says it's a 38 millimeter. Well, I know that this should be a 29 millimeter. So something is wrong here. Maybe it is a 38 millimeter. Now let me go back to the website. Let's double check that. Oh, it is a 38. See up here. It's recommended 38 millimeter motors. And then if I go at the very top of the page, it should tell me the motor mount diameter. Right. Skull fin span diameter. Weights. Oh, here it is, right here, motor size. I missed it. So it is a 38. You can also fly it on 29s, and so that was this second recommended motor list down here. So let's go back up to the 38 millimeters and pick a motor that we're going to fly. All right, so let's say the H100, and this shows. Oops, click the button. Let's go back to that. H100. Okay, so 2766 feet. Okay, so now I'm going to load the motor, choose an engine, and I'm going to H100, and I don't know what delay, so I'm going to use the longest delay available, and that's okay. Engine overhang, I'm going to change that to 1/2 of an inch. Because I want it to stick out the back just a little bit out of the back end of the rocket, because there's probably an engine retainer on there, and it has to grab the back end. Okay, and click OK. Flight events, deploy at maximum ejection. Simulation controls, I'm going to leave that alone. Starting state. This is a big rocket, so I'm going to say 98-inch launch rod, or 8 feet. And I'm going to launch straight up. So that my launch angle is straight up, so I get the maximum altitude. Launch conditions, I usually run my conditions with an 8-mile-an-hour wind speed. And let's click launch. Okay, so I got 2301. And it was 2766. So I am about 400 feet short, 430, 31 feet short. So, man, I wouldn't quibble over 400 feet when you're going that high. But typically, what the issue is one, it could be the mass. Let me look at the mass here. Let's see. I don't know what mass was used to run those simulations. This mass shown here is the mass that we built our kit, because we build all of our rockets. So this is actually in our showroom up front, which is that way in the building. I think it's in our showroom. I might have given it to Jesse Uliberry, who was going to repaint it for me. But we do have one that's built, and so we weigh it, and that's what we use on our website. So sometimes the manufacturer's weight will be different from our weight on our website because we actually build them. But then when you run the simulation, I don't know, since the Lock 4 is a really old rocket kit, I don't know how long ago these simulations were run. What was that weight? 963 grams. Mass 1302. So this is a heavier rocket right here. Oops, you're not seeing it. This is, I'm showing 1302 grams. So this is about 400 grams heavier than the one listed on our website. So it's possible if you reduce the weight, you're going to go higher. And so that would be my guess. So hopefully, Jim, that answers your question. He used an Aerotech 550. I'm not sure what Aerotech 550. I'm looking here. Oh, an H550. That's right, an H550. An H550 2963. 2963. So choose engine. Scrolling through the list. H550 ST stands for Super Thunder. And he said 11-second delay. 11 seconds. In the chat, he says 11-second delay. So I'll change that to 11 seconds. Click OK. Click launch. Let's see what the flight profile looks like. 31. So you'll get a 3123. Let me see what it looks like first. Yeah, goes nice and straight. Such a high thrust motor. That goes pretty straight. It's arcing over the top. And there's the parachute. That's pretty close to the top. And then it comes down. It's a pretty good walk, 1,600 feet away. It's a good candidate for dual deployment. So 3123, and then on the website, H550 Super Thunder 2963. So again, RockSim is showing it a little bit higher, not much higher. You know, 2963 versus 3123, a couple hundred feet. And again, this rocket is probably a little bit heavier in the simulation than it is in real life. So in real life, that's probably, you know, what these were run under. So hopefully, Jim, that answers your question. And he says, sound good. Okay, Carlos says his echo, he logged out of YouTube and then logged back in, and then it went away. Good. Johan de Sloper, who is in the Netherlands, and it's really late at night there. It's 10:25 p.m. change the, let's see, where did he first, 10 is still light out here. It's 10 p.m. and still light out there. Wow. Yeah, I wish it, we're getting dark around 8:30. You're further north than we are. I really like summertime when it gets dark so late at night. I kind of envy you. I'd have to go to Canada to get to have the sun still be out that late. Change plans, by the way. Ordered parts for 7 cluster in the idea of a lock ultimate. 6 by 18 and a 24 millimeter center mount. So he's talking about a lock ultimate. So what's he talking about? So okay, ultimate, the lock ultimate. So this is the lock ultimate. If you look at it, you see a lot of fingers of smoke down there at the bottom. This is a 7-engine motor cluster. So here's the back. It has 6 engines around the outside and 1 in the middle. These are all 29 millimeters. Johan is saying he's going to build a cluster with 6 18 millimeters on the outside and a 24 millimeter on the inside, which should be really cool. That's a nice, cool thing. All right. And 3D printer guy says, Tim's back. Hello, 3D printer guy. That's all the questions. I did have one question that came in on email, and I think it was from Carlos, and he asked, what do you do when you're adding heavy fillets to your rocket? So you build your rocket, and it weighs different than what RockSim predicts, because maybe you put heavy fillets on or multiple coats of paint on it, so you got added a lot of weight and paint. And the answer is pretty simple. What I would do, I would first look at the current weight of the rocket that RockSim predicts, which is right here, and then weigh your rocket and say you weigh it and it's a little bit heavier. Say it's 1,400 grams instead of 1,357. So what you would do, you get your calculator out. So 1,400, so that's 1,400 grams, the actual weight in physical life. And then you're going to subtract this number, 1,357 minus 1,357. So I need to add 43 grams. So that could be about the weight of fillets. So now I got to add 43 grams. I'm going to do it as a mass object. Makes it real simple. A mass object is any item component in the rocket that doesn't have a definite mass. And it's usually on the inside of the rocket, like a clay nose weight or fin fillets or paint. You know, it doesn't have a moment of inertia. So we're going to add it as a mass object. And so then the next thing you need to do is to figure out where your current center of gravity is. So this rocket, I need to take out, well, assume that the motor is in this one. This one doesn't have a motor in it, but assume that it is, and it weighs 1,357. Then I'd balance it on my finger, just like you see me doing right here. I'm trying to balance it. I'm really close, right there in the middle. Then you measure from the tip to that point, and that's your center of gravity location. And now you compare it to where RockSim's center of gravity is. And so like on this one, it's right here. Normally when you add fin fillets, your center of gravity is going to be further back. And so then what you do is you add the mass object, you adjust the position so that the center of gravity, this symbol right here, moves to where it actually is in real life. And that will best match your simulation. So on this one right here, if I was adding 43 grams, first I need to select where in the rocket I'm going to add it. So I'm going to add it, I can add it to that tube, I can add it to, to the motor mount tube, I can add it to pretty much anywhere. Let's just add it to this tube right here. So you select the tube, then you come up here to mass object, and this brings up a database of all the mass objects that RockSim has in the database, but you can just ignore it. And I'm just gonna create one. Okay, so I'm gonna call this the fillet mass. So you give it a name, and the classification is general. It's not a shock cord, and there's only other thing is general. I'm gonna say the mass of 43 grams. And currently it put the mass right there. That's the symbol for this mass object. It's the only thing that's a different color. So that's how you can tell it apart. And then you adjust the location until your center of gravity, this symbol, is in the right spot. So when I added it, it actually moved it forward, and I'd say I need to move it, I need this symbol to be like right about there. So just take this slider and just move it back until this is in the right spot. I don't care where this is. What concerns me is where the center of gravity is. I want to make sure that that is in the right spot. See, I can keep moving it back and moving it back until I get it right there. In fact, if I zoom out, I can move it. Say it's not far enough back. Well, I can still move it far back. I can just change this number to a bigger number. So I can make it 48 inches. And so when I hit the tab key, you'll see that little mass object right there. It's going to jump off the rocket way in the back. It's going to be hanging off the back. And let's click tab. You see now it jumped way back here, and then my my center of gravity moved further back. So now I'm moving it forward, and you can see my center of gravity is moving just slightly. So you just adjust it so that center of gravity is in the right spot, because this is going to give you the most accurate simulations. Because where your center of gravity is, the rocket always rotates about the center of gravity. So as it comes off, that's going to determine how much it weathercocks. That's why the center of gravity location is important. 3D printer guy says, could you weigh the glue epoxy bottle before and after the fillets? I would weigh the rocket itself and not the bottle of glue, because sometimes not all the glue makes it onto the rocket. And then it depends on what type of glue you're using. If you're using like a white glue or a yellow glue, that has water in it, when that water evaporates out and the glue hardens, now you lost all the weight of the water. So not all of the glue gets onto the rocket and stays there. So you may put 10 grams of glue on, but then when the water evaporates out, maybe it reduces the weight to 2 grams. There's usually a lot of water in wood glue. Epoxy, not all the epoxy ends up on the rocket either. You got that little mixing cup, and you put it in the mixing cup and you stir it around, and then you put it on your rocket. Well, there's always a little bit that stays in the cup or on the mixing stick. So I would probably weigh the rocket. That's the most accurate. Okay, Jim Hayland, for your information, designed my own using 3D printed parts. Checked in RockSim and flew it, and it looks good. Awesome. That's the purpose of RockSim, so you can design your own rockets. So he is using it for a good cause. Carlos says, RockSim 11 request, 2D side view, please add part gram weights above the parts. Carlos, you had the same idea that I had. So what's he talking about? So you have the parts tree right here. So what he's saying is, how about putting the weight of each part next to the part? And I do like that idea. So that one is probably on the list, because it's on my list already too. Okay, Johan is just commenting that he is doing the exact same thing with the center of gravity and the mass object. So that's good. That's awesome. That is the easiest, best way to do it. Johan says you need to do a CG correction anyway. Even if you measure every component to the 100th of a gram, your CG will be off most of the time a bit. And I agree with that. It's always off. I did a rocket. What was the last rocket that I did? And I threw in an extra mass object just to account for that. How do you know which is the last one that I did? I'll show you how that. You go to the home page and you scroll down here to the list of new products, and it was the Quest Superbird. That was the last one that I did, and I did the RockSim file for that. Actually, what I did was I took the old RockSim file, because this is an old kit and they re-released it. So I took the old file, updated it, so that it's now on our website. And you can tell that I did it because I also created the launch visualizer for it. This is the launch visualizer. If you've never seen the launch visualizer before, Terry Wheelock says, hey, my RockSim won't work because I don't have internet. Terry, that is RockSim on occasion. It's like once, I don't know what the duration is, but every now and then it goes to our website and checks if the RockSim is still registered. So you do have to connect to the internet every so often. I don't know how many days it is, but then you can go offline and you should be able to use it. So Terry, if it's not working for you, either connect when you have internet or send us an email on our website. If you can go up here. Any page on our website has our email. It says contact form. If you click on the contact form, I'll open it in a new tab. You can come down here and you can choose. There's a menu and you can say RockSim questions right here, and then send us an email telling us that you're having problems when you're not connected to the internet, and maybe we can try to troubleshoot. Okay, so launch visualizer, that's what we were talking about. So Superbird, the launch visualizer, this is actually a widget. A widget is a computer program that's inside of a web browser. So we have the launch visualizer at rocksim.com, and then we have the widget version, which is on our website. So if you just click on it, you can see that the screen just changed, and it's loading the program in the background. And it just loaded the Quest Superbird, and I'm not seeing it. Oh, where'd my Superbird go? Well, so I'm going to open up the launch visualizer at rocksim.com. So I'm just going to go to www.rocksim.com, load that. Maybe I'll find it there. I know it's not in the free version, but it should be in my own files because I've uploaded it. So, so when you first get here, it will load in an Apogee Avion, and this is it sitting on the launch pad. I'm going to log in into my account. Sign in. Okay, so now I'm signed in, and if I come up here, you can see I'm signed in as a premium member. I'm going to select the rocket design. I'm going to choose a design. So now I'm going to be in users designs. These are my personal designs. The public ones are here under demo designs, but in my user designs, these are all the ones that I've uploaded. And you can do a search, Superbird. So there's the Quest Superbird. Select that one. It loaded it there, and then it will show it on the launch pad. Now we'll go and choose a launch site, so where we can launch it. There was a new feature in the launch visualizer that the programmers told me about, and I haven't tested it yet. So we're going to test it, and I'll show you the new feature. The cool thing about cloud-based software is we can update new features all the time, and you don't have to do anything different on your end, which is the coolest thing about cloud-based software. There's a lot of people are kind of hesitant about cloud-based software, but this is the one big advantage. And then it's operating system independent. It will run under any web browser, so it will run on a phone, a tablet, or a computer as long as you're connected to the internet. So I'm going to pick a launch site here. I'm just going to randomly pick one. Bridgeton Area Rocket Club number 775. Click OK. I don't know where that is. We'll find out as soon as the map loads. It's loading the map right here. It looks like we're in the middle of a crossroad. Let me make this bigger. Come on, can I make you bigger? No. Let me go to 2D. Look at it straight up and down. And north is straight up. Just kind of getting the lay of the land here where this launch site is. This is in, it looks to be in New Jersey. Right there, okay. So it looks like a nice launch site for New Jersey. I mean, because they got a lot of trees there. I want to move the location of the launch pad, and I'm not going to be launching from the middle of the road. So let's move it out in the field right here. So to move the launch pad, you just double click and then come down here to confirm launch site. And what that does is it took the latitude and longitude and it put it right here along with the altitude above sea level. So this says it's below sea level by 5 feet. Interesting. So the starting state is like the orientation of the rocket. So this is, I'm going to angle the rocket. I think I'll angle it to the northwest out this direction, because we got a lot of room over there. We got a lot of room right there. This is actually a pretty good launch site. Okay, so the starting state, I'm going to angle it. You can't tell, but I'm angling it. Just look down here in this image. I'm going to go to the kind of the west, northwest, and I'm angled 50 degrees from vertical. That's kind of like too much, so I'm just going to tweak it back. All right, so we're going to launch that way. Let's check our wind conditions. We have a steady wind, and if we click on it, it says it's about 5 miles an hour. I'll make it 5 exactly. Coming out of the west, so you can see the direction right here, and you can change it if you want by grabbing this little, come on, I should be able to grab that. There we go. My cursor's too big. I make my cursor big so that you can see where I'm moving it around on the screen. So let's say the wind is from that direction, 256. Click OK. Now we got to choose a launch rocket motor. And this is just like RockSim, where you choose your engine. It only shows one motor tube. So I'm going to click Choose an Engine. D24. And select my delay. I'll take a long delay. Engine overhang. I'm going to make it 1/2 inch. So let me change this to inches. And then 0.5. Come on. And click OK. So it loaded the engine in there. This little icon means that it's in the center of the rocket. If you had pods, the red dot would be in one of the pods. All right, so D24-7. Let's check our parachute. The parachute, again, this is like RockSim. It's set to deploy at maximum ejection delay. And then we'll click launch, which is the button down here. It tells me how many credits it's going to use versus how many I have available in my account. If I want to give it a comment, I can say launch from New Jersey. And simulate. All right. You see this black background? That's because I'm underground. I don't like being underground. Let's launch it. So it's going to go 65 seconds. Still underground, or it's not loading the maps. There's the parachute that came out. Let's see if we can get the maps to load. Let's figure out what's going on here. Let's go back here to the launch site. Come on, I'm waiting for this to update. It's being a little bit slow. My internet connection must be a little bit weak. It's still running the simulation. Yeah, it should be switching to that different view. For some reason, it's not switching. So if that happens, oh, there it did, finally. Let's go back to the launch site. And this should switch. Man, this is running really slow today. Come on. Come on. That's working. Well, we can always refresh the page. Let me I'm gonna open this in Chrome instead of Safari, see if that makes a difference. Let me open a new Chrome window. Sometimes browsers can be a little bit different. Let's see if we got any more questions here. Terry Wheelock says, I need to simulate SpaceX BFR. Can we do that in RockSim 10? I don't know. I think you should be able to. It's just a matter of putting the design in. Kid Kicks says, I tried to simulate the Zephyr with an I-170, but OpenRocket only says it will go up 650 feet, but packaging says 300 feet. Well, there's the issue right there, is OpenRocket. We don't. OpenRocket's not our product, so I can't help you with OpenRocket. I can only help you with RockSim, because that's our software. OpenRocket's not our software, so sorry, I can't help on that one. So log in again. Choose design. Superbird. Select. Okay, so before I select that launch site, let me see if it saved that last simulation. Okay, so it did. So that brings me to the new feature. Is you can, the new feature is now there's two new buttons down here at the bottom. Load engine and then edit the simulation. And load engine and rerun are pretty similar. Rerun is, we put rerun in so that because this is in the cloud and it uses your credits whenever you run a new simulation, rerun allows you to rerun the same simulation without consuming any additional credits because you've already run the simulation. The caveat is you have to rerun it within 24 hours. Since I ran that simulation just a few minutes ago, I can just hit rerun and it should load it. In fact, I'll do that. See if it's any different. Yeah, it's much different now. Now I'm not. Oh. I thought that was a black screen, but that's not a black screen. That's just dark gray grass or mud. So there's our rocket in the middle of our field. That was interesting. That when I was on Safari, I got a black background, but on Chrome, it loaded it correctly. So there's the rocket, and if you run the simulation, the rocket's taking off. You can see it taking off in the large view, and this gives you kind of a wider angle view, and you can zoom out down here so you can get a better perspective. So there's our launch pad right there, and the rocket's way up there, and now it's coming under parachute. And at this point you can't see the rocket because it's so small, but if you want to know where the rocket is, what you do is you come up here to the settings and say, remember the camera view, show the trajectory path, and extrude the flight path to the ground. What extrude means is draw these lines down to where the ground path is. So now the rocket will be at the end of this green line. It's right there. Yeah. All right, so that simulation ran fine. Okay, so as you saw, I reran the simulation. It didn't consume any new credits. So now, let's say I want to run this simulation, but I don't know when that one was run. It could have been run, weeks or months ago. If you rerun it, it says you're going to use up credits, which is you expect. But I can load that engine, and what it does is all the settings that I currently have, like my launch location, it's going to launch it right there. Because I didn't change the launch location. When I reran that simulation just a second ago, I just reran it, and it reran it from the other launch site, which was in New Jersey. This launch site here is in Colorado. This is our launch site here in Pueblo, so that's kind of how I know that's what that is. So when you do load engine, it takes your current launch parameters, like your current launch site, and it will run the simulation based off of that. So now if I go back to here and go back here to data, and instead of clicking load engine, I click edit. So now what is going to happen is it's going to allow me to edit the simulation, all the parameters, like you would in RockSim. So if somebody sent you the file and you had no idea where it was run, you can click edit, and it's going to import all those parameters. Say this launch was, I don't know where this one was launched. Click OK. And if I go to the launch site, my launch site should have changed. Of course, it probably was run in Colorado because that's where I launched from. So the purpose of edit is so that you could see the parameters that somebody else used when they ran that simulation. Kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, where somebody was running the simulation and comparing it to our website. And they weren't sure what those parameters of the original website were used. And so this allows you to find out what those parameters are so you can make an apples to apples comparison. So there is some redundancy here. Rerun and load engine are pretty same. This is going to allow you to rerun it so you don't consume credits. This one is going to consume credits, but it will use your current launch site. And then this one here allows you to see what launch site the actual simulation was run, one of these simulations. So hopefully I didn't confuse you on that. But that's a new feature. You know, so we're looking to add new features, and that's a new one. Terry Wheelock, he's disparaging OpenRocket. I won't repeat that. Kid Kick says, I tried to use RockSim, but it won't let me load a motor. Okay, so Kid Kicks, you loaded a Zephyr. So we'll go back to RockSim. And let's open up a Zephyr. So I'm going to File, Open, and I need to go to my RockSim files, RockSim Designs. It's not under A's for Apogee. Let's try Z for Zephyr. Okay, there's a Zephyr. I'm not going to save that design. Okay, so here's a Zephyr. To load an engine, what you do is you come up here to this button right here. This is Prepare for Launch. The icon shows the bottom of the rocket, and then two arrows, a gray arrow, and then a red arrow, and then a flat disc. That's our blast deflector. So it's kind of like the rocket's coming down onto the blast deflector. That's what that symbol means. So prepare for launch. So then it will show you which tube that the engine is going to be loaded in, because there's multiple tubes here. There's a big tube, which is the body, and then there's the small one inside, and then there's also a launch lug. So which tube does the rocket motor go in? And RockSim thinks it's the 38 millimeter tube. So we're going to choose an engine, and it's going to put it in that one there. And he said an H or an I-170. So I'll scroll down here to an I-170M, stand for Metal Storm, so that's a Sparky motor. I don't know what delay, so I'll just use 14 seconds. Click OK, and then launch. And it launched, and you can see that it's running the simulation, and you can see it went 2740 feet. The packaging says 3,000 feet. Okay, here's another one of these. This is off by 260 feet. Again, it depends on what the launch conditions are, and I'm not exactly sure which ones, but that's how you would load an engine Kid Kicks in RockSim. Terry Wheelock says, check your parachute, then check your motor tube. Why would you check your parachute? I am not sure. Carlos K says, RockSim 11 request, launch visualizer. Always check that we are at or above the ground at the site before running a simulation. there's an issue that RockSim, the visualizer, is using two different databases. It's using the map that we use, Bing Maps. Here, this background, that's Bing Maps. But the actual altitude, so Bing Maps has certain, it says at this point you should be X number of feet above sea level. But in RockSim, that map is a flat map that Bing provides. And then we overlay that map on top of a grid map, which has all the terrain on it. And those two maps, the Bing Maps and the grid map, don't always equal each other. So sometimes Bing thinks it's up here, sometimes the geography map thinks it's here. And at that point, now the launch visualizer thinks it's below the ground. And the other thing is if you know, you could be launching next to a hill and you could be actually inside the hill. So it's a very complex problem that we've solved it as best as that we can for the current time being, until the grid maps and the Bing Maps line up. That's the only explanation that I can give. But yeah, that wouldn't be a feature request, that's a bug fix. Kid Kicks says, unable, he says he's getting an error that says, unable to load the engine associated with this simulation. Please create a new simulation based on the current rocket design. Okay, so basically what he's saying is, he's doing like what we were just saying. He's finding a list of engines. Which engine was that? It was the I-170. So this one, right? No, not I-470. I-170. I-71 Classic. And he's trying to, if you right-click on this, so you have Load Engines and Edit. So sometimes if you load engine, you get this, and that's the error he got, could not be located in the database. The reason for that, why this engine right here is not in the database, is because we updated the database to try to standardize the engine names. See, like this one, you know, here's an I-161W-14. This one says I-170 Classic-14. So these letters right here, the J and the W and Classic and RL and J, those were all over the place and they weren't standardized. So what we did, so that simulation was run using an old engine database. So what the message is saying is load from the new database, and that's what I did. So you go under here, you go prepare for launch, then choose an engine, and now I'm looking for that I-170. So I'm scrolling down until I get to the I's. I'm looking in this column right here, just scrolling down, and there it is, I-170 Classic. See, before it was I-170-Classic. Now it's just I-170 Classic, CL, which is the same thing, but now you can see all the motors are standardized to try to make them so we don't get all these weird things over here that cause confusion. These are bad enough. But if you select that and then launch, the simulation should run just fine. So don't load, a lot of people use that shortcut of loading engines like that. They'll just come here and then say load engines. Sometimes it will load an engine if the name stayed the same, but sometimes if the name is changed, it's not going to find it in the new database. The current database of RockSim is pretty up to date. In fact, it actually has some motors in it that Aerotech hasn't released yet. They've announced them, but haven't released them yet. So we put those in anticipation of Aerotech actually releasing them. Okay, so that handles that error. Okay. Kid Kick says, thanks so much, that worked. Okay, so he's up and running. I'm glad to hear that. We've gone over an hour as usual. So we got to end the program until next week. Next week will be July 8th. I will be back again. We will be back 2 p.m. Mountain Time, or 10 p.m. in the Netherlands for Johan. Yeah. So have your questions ready for RockSim, and I'll try to answer them again. So thank you again for coming, and we will see you next time. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on the replay and not live, hello, you are always welcome to come. We don't make fun of people, or at least we don't try to, except for you can make fun of me. Anyway, see you next time. So I'm going to end this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go out and launch something.